Yo, what is going on, everyone in the XRP community? Hope you guys are having yourselves a fantastic day today, as usual. I have not seen you guys since about Thursday. I do want to go ahead and say that, didn't have a stream or any content for that matter on Friday because I was hit with some sort of I'm debating between some sort of 24-hour stomach bug and food poisoning. I'm kind of now leaning towards the side of a stomach bug. But guys, oh my god, that was painful. But anyways, it's all over now. That's done, and I have some fantastic information I want to share with you guys today. And this is like hot off the press. This has just come out just a few hours ago. I mean, we are really early to this information. You guys are not going to regret clicking on this video. So let's go ahead and get into it. But real quick, I do want to take a quick look at CoinMarketCap here, because it does seem like the altcoins are starting to kind of pick up the pace a little bit here. I mean, nothing crazy, but as you can see, we are having a sea of green in the altcoins. And I want to say like every 10 or so coins, we start to see like a coin in the double-digit percentage gains, which is something I like to see. So interesting to note. And now today, like the values of the percentage gains in the last 24 hours are lower. But if you were to check yesterday, like all of these were like 5, 6, 7, 8%. So actually the altcoins are starting to look a little good now when we kind of got flown with a sea of green both yesterday and today. So really looking forward to that next alt season, whenever that is coming, or more so XRP season. All right, guys. So as you guys remember, very recently, I want to say last month, Mark Carney, he came out and stated that the dollar is too dominant and should be replaced by digital currency. And he said that, like, the major central banks should come together and, form their own virtual currency. And I believe he actually stated that they should be forming their own virtual reserve currency, and that virtual currency could replace the dollar as reserve currency. And as you guys know, China and Russia and a couple of other significant countries out in the world aren't too fond of the US dollar as reserve currency, and a lot of countries would love to see essentially the downfall of the US dollar no longer being the reserve currency. So, Mark Carney made this statement last month. Massive statement. I made sure to cover this on the channel. I mean, it's crazy to hear. By the way, from Bank of England, paying client of Ripple. Mark Carney is the governor of that central bank. So again, been a paying client of Ripple for 2 years. Mark Carney, massive statement. So Christine Lagarde actually responded to this statement very recently. So let's go ahead and check this out. And again, want to give credit to Darren Moore Jr., aka Fame21More on Twitter, for finding this information of today. So this is actually a 2-minute and 46-second long video clip. And honestly, I'm just going to play the whole thing for you guys because you need to hear this entire clip. Because Christine Lagarde's response, you guys need to hear it. I mean, they're literally talking about a reserve virtual currency. I mean, I was even a person like calling the, kind of the 589ers. I'm going like, no, guys, come on. Really? I mean, this is more tinfoil hat. But now this seems like it's starting to become a little bit more of reality and not so much a tinfoil hat theory. I mean, there's Christine Lagarde right there discussing a reserve virtual currency created by central banks. And after the video, we'll get into how you can actually, you just so happen to be able to issue your own currency on the XRP Ledger. So anyways, let's go ahead. Let's watch this clip and I'll discuss to you guys after. You guys need to see this.
An issue. Cryptocurrencies, you said it's not a threat to the currency system or the financial stability, but I would like a very specific comment on what the governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, said or proposed this summer. So he launched the idea of a digital currency promoted by a network of central banks to challenge the hegemony of the dollar and replace it as the international reference. So I would like to hear a comment on your side on what could be the impact and what kind of response the ECB could give. Thank you.
On your first question concerning the green bonds, I believe that the EIB is already a significant issuer of green bonds, and my understanding is that the ECB on the secondary market is also purchasing some of those products, and the threshold to which it can subscribe to those green bonds is not the 33% that applies to other bonds issuance, but it's 50%. So it allows it to actually oversubscribed relative to other subscription of bonds, and I think that it's good. I was also very pleased to see that Ursula von der Leyen has actually actively promoted a Green Deal, whether it's a new Green Deal or Green Deal, but she certainly is of the view that those issues are of critical importance, and I share that concern. On the cryptocurrency and the proposal articulated by Mark Carney, I was also very interested and intrigued by his proposal. And given the constant development that we have, given the, I mean, in a nutshell, for those who did not have time to read the Mark Carney speech, he essentially proposes that some of the key central banks actually form a venture, and that they explore together the formation of a joint central bank currencies. In other words, in a way, applying the principles that are on the mind of the Libra conceptors, having an instrument that is convertible into various sovereign currency. Mark Carney is proposing something that is similar in nature, but issued by the central banks themselves, which, you know, has some really interesting ramifications. So I hope we can explore it, and you know, I cannot prejudge on what the Governing Council of the ECB will be, but I for myself would certainly like to participate in this exploring of that new concept.
I would certainly like to participate in the exploring of this new concept. To hear that from Christine Lagarde, that is pretty massive, guys. And massive regulatory bodies, massive government organizations are a lot more open now to virtual currency than they were previously. Would have to say that. So now you guys might be thinking though, but wait a minute, Alex, what the heck? That's central banks coming together and they create their own central bank currency that's going to be centralized and crap, and it's not a real crypto. However, we have this statement from David Schwartz from January 28th, 2018. If banks respond by building walled gardens, essentially just creating their own, private, essentially their own private blockchain with their own central bank digital currency, which is essentially just going to be a walled garden, he says, will position XRP to bridge across those walled gardens. Because again, just because they create their own central bank digital currency doesn't mean that that central bank digital currency all of a sudden has liquidity to transfer into any other central bank digital currency or other fiat currency. So it needs a bridge to facilitate liquidity. And they said, and David says, if they want one big walled garden to take over, they'll have to be as open as we are. And essentially he's saying that, yeah, this one big walled garden, that ain't going to happen. They don't want to be open. Of course, central banks don't want to be open, transparent, decentralized. They don't want to do that. So they're going to be building their own walled gardens, but you're going to need to have a bridge asset to, walk across those walled gardens, right? Now, the beautiful thing is that you guys know there's that picture out there with Brad Garlinghouse standing there with Ross Lecco and Christine Lagarde from the IMF. It is very, very clear that Ripple and the IMF have some close engagement. And I would bet a lot of XRP that the IMF and Mark Carney and Bank of England, I imagine that these big, significant entities, I imagine that they know that you can actually issue currencies on the XRP ledger. I don't know exactly who from Ripple or whoever, or the engineers who work on the XRP ledger, I don't know who exactly came up with the concept of issuing their own currencies on the XRP ledger, but absolutely brilliant. And I think they implemented that in planning of essentially government entities or central banks wanting to issue their own currencies. Because think of it this way, guys. The government doesn't really create you know, I don't see central banks like creating their own like sort of technology, their own sort of blockchain. They're creating their own kind of technology. Like governments don't tend to create. Like, does the US government create all the weapons for the military? Like, no. There's other third-party companies that have mastered making these weapons. And then, I mean, again, weird analogy, but there's companies that master that process, and then the government comes in and they all have all the bids or whatever, and they adopt somebody else's good technology, right? Like just recently, they adopted the Sig Sauers. Like they didn't create that. They adopted it because it was a good technology. Similar with how these central banks, they could come to Ripple and go, hey, look, we want to issue our own whatever Bank of England central bank currency. They could come to Ripple and work with them and just issue their currency on a pre-existing functional network instead of building their own network. Because guys, I don't see central banks really creating their own sort of blockchain. I don't think they'd even be smart enough to really do so. And again, governments don't create, they adopt. And I don't think it would be that hard for central banks to talk with Ripple, because Ripple's already working with 40 to 50 central banks, that these central banks could actually come to Ripple and issue their central bank digital currency on the XRP ledger, thus making it very, very easy for them to use XRP as a bridge between those digital currencies. So, guys, massive, massive stuff. Christine Lagarde responds to Mark Carney on the Libra-like central bank reserve cryptocurrency statement. And Christine Lagarde saying that she would absolutely love to participate in that venture. Guys, yeah, that is a pretty massive statement. And I never even thought that Christine Lagarde would actually respond to Mark Carney, because since that Mark Carney statement was so massive, I was thinking she'd probably just keep it under the radar and like never publicly speak about that, because that's a massive statement. But she does, and she responds to it. Guys, her statement of these these central bank reserve currencies again opens up the idea of they could issue those on the XRP ledger, because again, governments don't create, adopt. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in the video today. Really do appreciate it. Make sure you do smash the like, subscribe. Check the links in the description if you do want to support the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one.